What's up, Blender Warriors? Welcome to Excite 3D Tutorials. Today, we're diving into an epic tutorial, so get ready to experience some amazing techniques and tricks that will take your animation skills to new heights. Hey, maybe that's the reason why this video is a little bit so long than usual. Let me give you the overview. First, we'll kick things off with geometry nodes. I know they can creep you out, but don't worry. I'll keep them super simple and easy to understand, even if you've been hesitant about them. I'll also show you how to create dynamic effects and make particles move like they own the scene using key physics and use curves as force fields. Yeah, you heard me right. But that's just the beginning. We'll shatter expectations with the self-fracture built in Blender to create rocks with material effects. Plus, we're creating these beautiful starry background while keeping it subtle with the light path node so it doesn't steal the show. Also, we will use light path node to control lighting, even transform your animations into stunning live wallpapers for any device. Are you ready to enhance your inner artist in Blender with these tricks? Let's jump in, stick around, and let's do the thing, guys. Okay, so we will create this together from bottom to the top. We will start with these rocks. Then these floating rocks with decided materials and emit light at only one side, which looks cool. Then we will finish up with the background shading and lighting the overall scene. I think it's the better idea to show you where we need to reach while creating. So this is where we are supposed to reach in creating this animation only before touching any shading nodes. Is not a drill, everyone. Now clean up the scene by deleting everything from the scene. Then let's add a curved circle as the starter object. I chose this because I want those rocks to be rotating around, and this is the best simple way to achieve the effect in geometry nodes. As I said, I will keep the nodes very simple for everyone to follow along. First, we need to change this curve to mesh, so I add a curve to mesh node to do the trick for us. But you can see nothing happen to the circle because it has no depth at all. So by adding a curved circle node and attach it to the profile curves, it will add the depth to the circle, which we will then add some rocks on top of it as instances. So I'm gonna add the instance on point node to help me put rocks on top of this donut-like thing. It's a circle anyway. After that, we need an instance object. That means the object that it will be distributed on the circle and get those rocks things. For example, here I add a cube as instance. You can see all cubes are now all over in circle shape as a circle-like donut. But we actually do not need these cubes. We need really rough thing that sounds like a rock. Right. So let's add a cube and deform it in sculpting mode. This is an efficient way to get natural raw organic shapes for me, so I'll stick with this. But make sure you enable this option here. This helps to sculpt objects without manually subdividing or a cube to get extra vertex to work with. So Blender will add vertex for us while you do sculpting freely. Okay. After you've finished, you will find out that our cube has so many vertex. Do you know what does that mean? It means we cannot use this as an instance object, because if you do that, you will be creating a huge mistake, and prepare to cook your PC if you will have many instances. So let's remesh just a little bit this cube to reduce vertex for the sake of optimizing the performance. After you are satisfied with the shape and number of vertex you got, just apply the modifier. Now let's return to geometry nodes, then delete the cube instance. Again, drag and drop the sculpted cube from outliner here. Perfect. After that, we need to randomize the scale of these instance objects in a certain range so that each one could get its own scale values. So to do that, I'm going to add a map range node and a random value node and connect them like this. Also, I added a transform node and connect it to the instance object so that I can gain a maximum control of the transformation of this cube. You can see now I can easily randomize the scale of these objects by adjusting values in this map range and random value nodes. And that's the beauty of geometry nodes. I really love these nodes despite they are confusing as hell sometimes. Now duplicate transform node and connect it here right after a curved circle node. Remember, this is the node which gives depth to the circle at first place. If you're hating on these nodes, it just means you're almost there. That's a sign of growth. Keep pushing through, and soon you'll look back at this moment with a smile, proud of what you've accomplished. You've got this. Keep your head up, and let's finish strong together. Come on, it's just geometry nodes. If you're cursing at the screen, just remember you're about to unlock Blender Mastery. Okay, now we are going to make each rock rotate in its own z-axis as these ones here. So because rocks are just instances, we will focus on rotation values of this instance node here. I'll use the same map range node to make sure each rock rotate in a certain range. Also, I will use random node to randomize the rotation speed for each rock, without forgetting to use a combined size node just to specify the axis of rotation of these things here. Anyway, just watch what I'm doing here. If you're feeling lost, don't panic. That's completely normal in the world of geometry nodes. It's all part of the adventure. We're going to conquer these nodes together, and trust me, the feeling of victory will be absolutely exhilarating once we finish, so keep your spirits high. We've got this. I used to values node to ensure that these rocks each own rotate in different direction. I mean, some will go clockwise, while the others will go anti-clockwise. Now everything looks perfect for me, so we are done for this part about geometry nodes then. I hope everything was clear while I explain these basic concepts. But if anywhere was not clear enough, please let me know your thought on what you were thinking about these geometry nodes. You can take a screenshot for these nodes. Now let's create these objects rotating around the sphere. I'm going to use a particle system for this, but I will make the particles follow the curve while moving, so let's see how we can do that. Add the curve for the particles to follow along. Add a cube or any other object as the source of particles, which lately on we will instance the collection of random objects. After that, select the curved circle added, then go to Physics tab and enable Force Field, but make sure to change the force type to Curve Grid. This will ensure all particles follow the curve as their path. Now we need to create the objects like these flowing around the sphere. So add a cube, then subdivide it once, then make sure to set to materials after you subdivide the cube. This is essential because we are going to fracture this cube A, but we want the parts after fracturing it to have to materials. That's to say inner material and outside material. So later we will make the inner part have a mission like these rocks here, but we will keep the outer surface black like this one. But if you don't like the black color, you can put any color you need, but I prefer black for this. Now select the cube, then press F3 and search for self-fracture. But if you cannot find it, go to Preferences tab and enable the self-fracture add-in for this to work. Yes! After that, search and click it. You will need to set noise value to 1 so as you can get parts which are randomly fractured. But for the source limit, myself I will go with 25. The most important part is in this material here. Make sure you set it to 1 since we need to materials to each single fractured part. It's like we count from 0, which means 1, and 1 which means 2. Anyway, it's confusing at first, but programmers understands what I'm talking about. After that, hit OK and wait for the magic to happen. After that, make sure you delete our previous cube in order to get only fractured parts. Now you can see we get these beautiful looks. So what we are going to do next is to put every fractured part in a collection so that we can use these all objects as instance to our particles system. Just select all of these fractured parts and press the M to place them in a collection. After that, make sure to set the collection as the instance of these particles that are rotation around this sphere. Just do as I show you here. If you do everything correctly, you will get something like this. Make sure to disable the Show Emitter option here. This will ensure the cubate that emit these particles do not show up in final render.
Okay.
To use curve as guiding path is very useful, as you see it's non-destructive too despite you change position of the cube. So in emission settings, it's where you can decide the number of particles and the speed of them by adjusting half-life and in values. Now let's create the second layer of floating rocks. To achieve that, it's pretty easy. All we need to do is to duplicate the particle's emitter by adjusting it. For every particle's emitter, remember to disable show emitter so as the object emitting particles won't appear at the final render. You can see when I change scale of one particle system, all systems change scale, something you may not need. So to fix this, just click here to make each particle system independent. Enable rotation to make these rocks rotate while moving. Also be enabling dynamic rotation, each object will rotate dynamical something, which will enhance realism and fluidity of the flow of the rocks. But don't forget to set angular velocity value. Do the same for these top flowing rocks, just add some rotations. Now let's add the sphere for our guy to flex on. You can auto shade smooth it to make it smooth. Also, let me add the sphere animation. I will use the built-in function modifier of cosine in graph editor to create this loop easily. I think it's a way much more easier to animate sinusoidal motions than manual work, so just look the way I do it. All you have to do is to select the sphere and press I to add a keyframe. Make sure to delete any other keyframes except for Z location keyframe, since it's what we need in animating the up and down movements. Just set these values like this. Now let's add these random floating particles. The easiest way is to use key physics and particles system. This is the great particle system trick. I have in-depth tutorial for it. So if you never watched it, I highly recommend you to watch this tutorial to fully understand the key physics in Blender, because it has endless possibilities indeed. So after watching this tutorial, you can watch that video too. It's very useful. You know, this key physics is so cool, so you must watch my other tutorial if you have not watched it yet to fully master the key physics and particles system. You will feel different after you master that trick because it's a game changer in dynamic effects, guys. After that, tweak these values as follows. Okay, now we should set up these random particles, be like these rock things here. And because we already have the rocks collection we set up early, we will just instance the same collection and it will work just fine. But it's all about personal preferences here, so you can instance whatever you like just in case. Always make sure you disable this show emitter option if you want to make these emitter objects emitting particles to NOAA be visible in your final renders. Okay, now we are good to the camera, which will be rotating the scene here. So I'm going to place 3D cursor to a sphere, then I will add an empty object of which I will parent my camera to it. Then I will use the cool blender to a cool drivers to animate the rotation of this empty. You know, always I found it's a good idea to parent camera to an empty, because by doing that you can easily control the camera movement much easier. Give it a try if you never tried before. To parent a camera to an empty, just drag and drop the camera to an empty object. Make sure you hold shift button when you drag and drop the camera, otherwise it won't work. Then press this icon here. This allows you to navigate with camera in Viewport. I mean, it's the quickest way to set up a camera. Just look at this. I will change the resolution here just to fit with the smartphone screen, since I just wanted to create a live wallpaper for my phone, but you can choose any resolution here depending on your targeted device. After that, I just rearrange the scene and adjust camera angle to get the look I need. Now let's animate the camera to rotate this scene. As you can see, the empty is moving with the camera, so I'll add a driver to the Z-axis rotation of this empty object. Now you can see we got this smooth camera rotation by just using a simple driver expression. If you want to dive deeper and understand driver's concept in Blender, just watch this driver's tutorial I made earlier. You will be mastering using drivers in Blender. Okay, now let's add our guy flexing on top of the sphere. This guy, I downloaded him from a cool website called Mixamo, link in description. So I downloaded him, and the animation for him, and I just imported him. Then we should place him on top of the sphere. Place the 3D cursor on top of the sphere, then place the selection to cursor. It's all about shortcuts, guys. Then we should pair this guy to the sphere so that he can move with the rhythm of this sphere. You know the drill, right?
Yes!
Just drag and drop this guy to the sphere here, but if you feel too tired, you can just use a Ctrl+P shortcut to pattern quickly these two. Okay, now we are done with the animations. Now let's dive into more interesting part. I mean, for now, we are going to create these two side shaded stones, which are emitting light at one side. Also, we will create the background shaders, followed by these rocks and sphere shading, and lighting this scene overall. It's interesting, right? Personally, I love the shading part. I don't know about you, what's your favorite part in Blender? Maybe I can guess the part that creep you out. The geometry nodes, maybe. Am I right? Let me know in the comments, what is your favorite part in Blender, guys? I really love to know. Now I just want to find the perfect angle for easy working with these shades. It's all about comfortability while dealing with these shading nodes. Now everything looks black because our scene have nothing, I mean no lights, no any shading. So we will deal with this shade editor tab until we get something really cool. First, let's begin with the rocks flying around the scene. Also, you need to know that we cannot select the whole particle system like this to set materials to the rocks. I mean, you can do it, but by doing that you will limit yourself that freedom of customizing the appearance of these rocks. That's why I recommend to select individual objects within the collection to set up their materials. So I am going to select one of these rocks. What to put in mind is that these rocks share the same materials, so if we change materials to a single rock, all rocks that are flying around will be affected too. Don't forget, each single rock has two materials we set before fracturing the cube forming these rocks. It's a good practice keep in mind the names of the materials your instance objects rocks have, because by doing that your shading process will be much more smoother. See what I mean, guys? But let's just keep the other part dark. Then the other side, I will use a Blackbody node as the color of the emitted light. And in Blackbody, by setting the value lower, the emission will be more red, but if you use the higher values, the emission will be blue. Generally, because these values are temperature and values in Kelvin, I guess so. As you know, the higher temperature is always bluish in color. Okay, now we are done with these floating rocks. But if you are wondering why here it looks cooler than in Viewport, well, I render these images in cycles, but in Viewport I use EEVEE, which is really bad at rendering emission lights from objects, so don't worry, I just use EEVEE for fast real-time rendering. Okay, now is a good time to create this beautiful background, so let's switch to world in this shade editor to do the trick. Okay, now we need to achieve this background look here. For the background, it's a matter of personal preferences of what to be in TH background. For me, I think I like this one the most, so I'll create this background. As the sky, let's assume. I won't use sky texture or environmental texture node instead. I will just use an image texture, this is the image I downloaded anyway, just in case. We'll import the image of stars I downloaded from Pinterest. It's a really cool platform for images sources. You can check it out, link in description. Select the image node, then press Ctrl+T to get the full control of the image texture. But before, I'll need to enable this Addon here. But if you cannot see it, search it and get extension tab. It's a very useful add-on, guys, in case you never used it. All I focus by now is to achieve this effect here, that's why I end up distorting my stars. After adjusting the rotation and scale values, I end up getting these results. Also, I wanted these lines to be more brighter, so I decided to put emission node to control the strength of these nodes. But I really do not want the background emission to affect my scene light. I mean, I don't want it to contribute in lighting my scene, so I will make the background not contribute to lighting of my scene. It's simple to achieve this effect, that's how it actually sounds, so all I need to do is to add a light path node which will help me achieve this effect. Cool, and this is what I wanted. Now the background emission strength do not contribute at any lighting to my scene. This is very useful in case you want to keep the background visible without interrupting with your lighting. Now let's create this nice fall off gradient here to make the scene more dynamic. Let's add a gradient texture combined with the color lamp node. The color lamp node helps you to have maximum control over the gradient. Anyway, if you want to learn more about gradients in Blender, I highly recommend you to watch my early tutorial, which I cover everything you need to know about gradients in Blender. I end up with these values here in this transform node to get this effect. You can just copy the values. In case you need to see the light contribution from the background, just hold Ctrl plus Shift plus click to quick connect node to the output. See the way it looks? That's why I usually prefer to disable background lights from images sometimes, because they ruin my scene. Now if you take a closer look here, you can see behind this guy there's light coming behind him, the thing, which adds a little touch to the scene. So we are going to set up this simple light. All we need to do is to add area light at the back of this guy, then parent it to the camera so that it's always light the scene from the back of camera view. After I ensure the light is pointing the camera. I parent taillight to the camera also, as it always faces the camera. If you hate parenting objects like this, you can just use constraint light track to constrain. After that, just adjust the strength of the light and adjust it if you like. You can see before and after addition of light. The light really give a depth to the scene. Consider this is just EEVEE engine. Okay, now let's add some materials to the center sphere and to these rocks down the guy here. I use these real-time materials Addon and Songtus library Addon. These are very cool Addon for material if you like them. Just check out link in description to get those. I prefer these addons because they give me amazing shades of different materials, so they really time saver. I really recommend them. Consider they are highly customizable too. All you have to do is to select the object you want to apply material to and click add material. It's very simple. To apply materials to these rocks, all you need to do is to select the instance, which makes these bunch of rocks, and apply materials too. To support EEVEE, I added a sunlight source to light up the scene a little, but if you were walking in cycles, there were no need of adding a sun, because cycles is capable of handling light sources very good compared to EEVEE. For better viewing experience, you can set the area out of camera completely black like this. Guys, if you look closely, you can see some artifact of light on the edges of the person. Those are the headache of working with EEVEE, because EEVEE is not that good when it comes to lights handling as compared to cycles, so if you render this in cycles, it looks perfect. Know these artifacts. Okay, now we are somewhere. So I bring up some couple of images I render in cycles just to see the details in both engines. But I'm really sorry I did not render the complete cycles animation, guys. I'm really sorry for that. I just come up with these different images to see the perfect results. And you know what, guys? These things are good wallpapers, I guess. Let me know what you are thinking about this in comment section. I'll be more than happy to hear your thoughts. Sometimes you can add a little twist to the scene, like here I added this thing that's emitting sunflowers levers on its bottom. You can see this is just a simple shape object, but I applied displacement modifier with cloud texture, which changes its shape. I just created a vertex group on its bottom where the particles will be emitted. Then I created sunflowers leaves, which I put them in a collection as instance of particles to be emitted. Also, I applied ocean modifier, then I used a simple driver expression to drive this value here, which created this animation like it's floating. At the end, you get something like this. In case you are interested in this look and final render, you can achieve this by changing the render engine to Workbench and set it as follows. Alright survivors, we've navigated through the wild and spooky jungle of geometry nodes, starting with crafting those dynamic particle effects, bending them around curves like a force field, and smashing rocks with the self-fracture Addon. Then we made the starry sky look amazing without any light bounds, played with render engines for some cool looks, and wrapped it up with the ocean and displacement modifiers for that floating thing. Now it's your turn to dive into Blender and scare up something awesome. Take what you've learned and make it your own in Blender. If you run into any issues or have questions, drop them below and I'll be there to help. And hey, if this was helpful, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more cool Blender content if you want to keep this energy rolling. Don't forget, the survival tips are here whenever you need them. If you got stuck, throw your questions down below and I'll help you fight through the chaos. Until the next one, stay creative, stay spooky, and keep blending like a boss. Peace. Remember, eat, render, repeat. Creativity knows no bounds.